The wacky world of MultimediaJay.
Summer's over at the Geek House. The thunderstorms in the front that ended the humidity from last night has gone through. The dew point has dropped 10 degrees, and I can smell the attic, which means that there's high pressure outside, forcing air down to this level through the attic, which I don't want. I want the opposite. So we're going to remedy that by putting some fans in the windows to make the pressure go the other way and increase the pressure of the ground floor of the house and have that go up and out through the attic instead. So just before we do that, and before things get a little noisy here, one last look at the barometer for summer humidity, and quite frankly, I won't miss it. The fact that I've had equipment malfunctions because of the high humidity says the whole story here. The overnight lows for the next 10 days at least do not get out of the 50s and just a little above 60. So a marked change from the mid to high 60s and even 70s that we've seen with summer's last gasp here. Oh yeah, I can feel the difference already, even though it just stopped raining and it's still humid out. Big, big difference. Looks like the backyard's turning into a bit of a jungle though. Not for long. So with the changing of seasons is going to come the changing of content, as WoW Legion has been a very good expansion so far, and we gotta see if Blizzard keeps it up. Looks like they're going to keep it up with what's on the table for patch 7.1. Hardware side though, I built Monolith. There's really not much left that I can really do except transition from summer mode back to winter mode and just continue decluttering this place. Especially now that I've found out that I can't keep some of my old power supplies because they don't have the pins on the main connectors to really be useful anymore. So, I mean, we can declutter still more, make another trip or two for the Great Sift still more. And for crying out loud, that's the styrofoam that Monolith's case came in a couple of weeks ago. We can throw that out at least with trash pickup tomorrow. But yeah, decluttering has been the theme of what I've been doing since I've been here, and it's time for that to continue. Especially now that we've basically rung the death bells, so to speak, for certain systems and components, like the Delosaurus, for example. Styrofoam's taken care of. That's the first baby step. We also gotta get that air conditioner out of there, since we're probably not gonna need it anymore, so that can go back to its resting place next to the washing machine, and it'll help with decluttering some of these cables too. The real loser this summer has been window fans. I have zero use for them anymore. They don't really serve any purpose. I had to get them at the old place because there were a couple of windows in the loft that were too small for a box fan, but all the windows here will fit a box fan properly, so yeah, don't know what I'm gonna do with these. Throw them in the basement maybe, even see if they rust themselves to death. Washing machine! Well, it is Sunday, chores day. Gotta get everything over with before whatever overtime's gonna come up this week. We still have some of that crap going on at the 9 to 5. Not as much as before, but never say never. That's what I've been saying as we've gone through all this rubbish lately. Another part of the tech video closure that I'd like to touch upon here is the discussion in the comments, hey wait, there were 2 silver bullets? Yes, at one point there were, and there still are to an extent. The case for the original Silver Bullet and the hardware for Silver Bullet 2. That Antec case is actually what I originally put the remains of my HP inside for Dad, and he used that as his backup, his main and then his backup computer when the Delosaurus died for the first time, or it was just too slow. So we ran that into the ground until that was too slow. Nowadays, the case houses the remains of my 2005 system, which we just needed some better power for it in order to power it up. But that houses the remains of my 2005 system, Athlon 64 4000 single core. But yes, at one point that system was known as Silver Bullet 2. I built it to handle Elder Scrolls Oblivion in anticipation of Oblivion at the end of 2005 when the Silver Bullet fell victim to capacitor plague. Now the Core 2 Duo system is in there, formerly known as Piano, of course. Now back to the Silver Bullet's case. And then Silver Bullet 2's remains, the 2005 system, are inside this thing. If I could fix the latch so that door actually stayed closed, this thing would be worth keeping around. It's actually a pretty good case. I went looking for replacement cases and they all suck. So this thing's better built than all of them in many ways. We just have to fix a few mechanical issues with it. Likewise with fixing the issues on this thing with the front USB ports. Which, by the way, the hack jobs are still in there. They just don't stay straight all the time because they're not actually connected to anything. They're still jammed in there though. With the right tool and the right approach, I could get those things to where they're facing straight out again. Anyways, yes, at one point there were 2 Silver Bullets, but I kind of got away from that with Tuxedo when it was originally built with the Core 2 Duo hardware. Well, the color was different on the case too, so that's another factor. Lessons learned from Tuxedo Monolith. Spare parts, put them in a bag, put them somewhere in the case out of the way. Store them that way and never have to wonder where they went. So I got the door latch from Tuxedo and all its parts, as well as the drive sliders. As I stop using these and start using others, then, you know, they all go in here and we don't run short on stuff. Likewise with the drive covers in Monolith. I still have them all, I didn't throw them out. So you don't have to worry about how we're going to cover empty bays in years down the road. Lessons learned, folks. Lessons learned. By the way, that's an Aldi brand, in case you're wondering about Boulder. Another side effect of switching from summer to winter mode, this thing is freed up. It's not propping up that fan anymore. This is going to be where the next round of Great Sift stuff goes. Let's set it up. Ah, nice and clean and shiny, although there's still some stuff that has to be moved somewhere else, like the speaker wire, and things like that. So yeah, I just cleaned all that off, including the skid marks that were left behind by the rubber from the disintegrating speakers that got smushed all over the table when I was building all the computers on here. Basically, the thing I had, you know, the anti-static mat was kind of on top of what was left of those, and it was just like that. Nice and clean. There could be some more cleanup though. Probably could do that later when I'm further along in this process. In terms of tech video closure though, we need to tie up all the loose ends with all of the computers. Beginning with Tuxedo, Silver Bullet, finding out what exactly is getting recycled out of those systems. And of course, the decision that I made earlier regarding the Delosaurus and the old stuff. If it doesn't support serial ATA, it's not a keeper at this point. First off, Tuxedo. Power supply is out, for the time being anyways. I'm going to plug this thing in loose to the Silver Bullet and see if it works reliably. That'll tell me whether the power supply or the motherboard has gone bad. If the motherboard has gone bad, the 2005 system can go into the Silver Bullet, and we can play around with Linux stuff on there that way. Otherwise, this thing still works. I also stuffed the spare parts in that nice little crevice right over there. So that should be good for making sure that the spare parts are stored inside the right system here. Okay, this is hooked up, just loose on the desk, or table. Bit of spaghetti in there, but everything's hooked up, including the graphics card. Let's turn the power on here. Let's see what it does. There's your proof that it's not the power supply. Nothing. Try number 2. I missed the hidden Molex in the corner.
Epic.
Ah, older motherboards. Aren't they such happy little bundles of joy? Plus the front panel connectors, I had to recheck those because they don't all go the same way on this motherboard. Some of them the polarity goes one way, others it goes the other way. They couldn't even get that right either, unlike today's motherboards where they're all either right side up or upside down. So, this thing is on. Now, let's push the button. Nothing. Still nothing. I really don't get... Squeakity squeak squeak, squeak 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 squeak. Yes, it would help if we turned the power on.
Epic.
I'm now a water cooler joke. Okay, something clicked. Processor starts spinning, and we get a post, right? We get a post. So I wonder if the reverse polarity on the FPCs was what was causing some of the trouble, like the power switch and the reset switch. I had trouble specifically with the power switch working correctly. So it might have been I don't know how it could be a polarity. Oh well, it's DC, not AC, so that could have a lot to do with it if there's some kind of diode or something like that. Anyways, it has nothing to boot to because this machine hasn't been used in months. But I think the prudent thing to do is to kill the power manually. Kill the power manually, give it a few shakes, turn it back on. Oh, it's starting back up automatically. See if it posts again. It posts. That might have been it. When I put this motherboard back in here, I didn't keep an eye on, I'm used to newer motherboards where everything lines up. So let's see if it runs off the Antec True Power now. So we can put this back in Tuxedo until we do a power supply rotation if I get something newer for Monolith. Original power supply is hooked back up. What does it do? Click, click. Problem before is it kept clicking off. We get a post, just like that. Good, we can clean up the spaghetti now and get this thing in a more respectable condition. So yeah, the screwy the screwy front panel connectors, if I can not go all Elmer Fudd on everybody, wah wah wah. Anyways, yeah, that does mean that the fans are spinning too, so we better be careful with some of this ketchup and mustard wire we've got going on here, but yeah, okay, we can clean up the rat's nest and get some Linux going on this thing again for the first time in months. Graphics card's okay too. Nice. Now the last thing to figure out, of course, is the older system. What are we gonna do about that? What kind of cheapo power supply can we get that system running with? One more, just to be sure. Yeah, you can see it move immediately when I push the button. You can depend on your intel. I'm curious what would happen if I replaced the heatsink compound with some Arctic silver in this thing, even though it's a Core 2 Duo with the stock cooler. Still, I mean, this thing is from late 2000s, so I can't imagine the plus default stuff pre-applied. That means it was applied using the spread method. What kind of temps could I get on this thing if I did that a little bit better? We'll play with that at some later date. For now, though, we got the Radeon 6 in this thing, good to go. While the other card is in the other system, the Kepler card is in Tuxedo, and I think Tuxedo needs its power supply back. Or does it? Right now, the 2005 system is not important in terms of getting it working again. I have, however, tossed around the idea of upgrading the power supply in Monolith to something that's more current, like maybe this Corsair CS550. Just gotta check the number of plugs that are available versus what I'd be plugging in inside the case. I do know that I could probably drop the wattage with my emphasis on power efficiency, and of course 80 plus gold would be a step up from the 80 plus silver supply that I currently have that has a couple of years on it, and it's on fan number 2. At that point, I will basically rotate everything down a notch. The silver one goes back to Tuxedo, the regular 80 plus one goes back to the Silver Bullet, and that Antec True Power goes all the way back to the 05 system. So that way I don't spend money on old systems, which is really the way you gotta do things with these sorts of things. Have systems that are similar enough and standardized enough that you can hand me down some parts. So whenever I feel like getting this, then we'll be talking 2005, but it's not a priority. It's a single core system. It does have a small enough RAM amount in it that it could run Windows XP again if I really wanted some kind of nostalgia system of some sort. Or see what happens with XP in today's world, although there are some people out there that are still trying to use it. Regardless, though, it's just not important. I mean, that system is so old, it draws 10 watts of standby power. Completely unacceptable in this post-ERP era that we live in today. So I think what I'll do then is just get Tuxedo working again and call it with that. Just work with those two other systems. I would like to have room to hook up a secondary system down in the corner of the desk. But for now, well, let's just get Tuxedo working again and call it with this tech video closure. There, we're back in running order. Although I have no real interest in running these things for any reason right now. Either this system or its silver predecessor. And apparently the camera has no interest in focusing either. There we go. So where do we go from here? Well, whenever I feel like switching out the power supply, then we'll do the power supply rotation that'll bring the 2005 system back online. It's not important, though. If I run into more hardware issues with Monolith that seem power related, then I'll make the switch. I mean, we are 5 years. We are using a power supply from over half a decade ago to power a 6700K. It might be time for something just a hair newer. As it is right now, Tuxedo and the Silver Bullet work as far as I know. Don't really have much of an interest in doing too much with them yet, though. We gotta do some more cleaning around here as the seasons change, and there will be more things that will be meeting their end, so to speak, including some projects that I decided not to follow through with. Like, I don't really think I want to be tinkering with speakers much anymore. The neighborhood bass nut, I found out, actually works in my building, so we discussed what's been going on, and does he really need 5,000 watts or whatever he's got when he's got apartment neighbors? Haven't heard him since. So, either way. Right. So I imagine by this evening the humidity will have finished going away. The barometer is just now starting to move, but we need more sunshine to burn off what's left of the summer humidity, and then it'll be very much fall around here. So, the seasons change, and of course I've got me some Legion to play, because there's certainly a lot to do there. Might do some more great Sif type stuff, or maybe a few things with these two systems to break up the monotony of gaming videos. One last note on the gaming videos, though. I want to get to the point, again, in case anybody didn't watch the video that I did earlier on this, I want to get to the point where Play Some Stuff is WWMJ with video games. So maybe not so much be talking about them as commentaries anymore, because when you talk about commentaries and reviews, people have to be interested in the game that you're playing in order to watch, because otherwise there's no real point. Why do they want to know whether or not getting a game is a good idea if they're not interested in it? What I want to do is do kind of like what I've been doing here. You know, I goof around with computers here, and in Play Some Stuff, I want to goof around with video games. There's certainly plenty of things to talk about in Legion, but I'd like to just sit back, relax, and have some fun without turning into a Twitch channel. Over on Twitch, things can get a little bit, drawn out, so to speak. So I'd like to keep it as a best of type thing. Speaking of best of, this is definitely a best of system with what I've managed to get from it all these years. There will be more with this system at some point later on, but it is a decent backup computer. Assuming I can get the stability under control, this should be usable if something happens to Monolith. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Actually, you know what? This isn't a good way to end this either. I started with two of these things kind of pointing at each other. I think that's the only fitting way to end things. Hold on a second. There we go. It's about time these two systems shared a shot together that didn't consist of them sitting on the floor or under the table or something. Tuxedo and the Silver Bullet, twin towers of power, representing over a decade of computing awesomeness in self-built systems that I've built over the years. Also, with this specific shot, my tribute to those who gave their lives to get this country through the mess that was the September 11th attacks 15 years ago. I know some folks may have considered me insensitive if I didn't bring this up. However, to those who went above and beyond the call of duty, our troops, first responders, everybody who helped get this country through that dark time 15 years ago, your sacrifices have not been forgotten. Hashtag never forget. And indeed, salute to everyone who helped get us through that mess all those years ago. Thus ends a summer of tech tinkering, which ultimately culminated in Monolith being built. Where we go from here, who knows? As it stands right now, I've got some Legion to play, and there's plenty of things to do in that game. So where we go from here, we'll figure it out. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay, signing off. Thanks for stopping by.